The other day I asked a girl for a number at the gym, and the first thing I started with was, "How old are you?" And looking back at that, I'm like, dang, like right off the bat, I just kind of fumbled. It's not a good look when you go up to a random girl while she's working out, and you're just like, "How old are you?" And then she was like, "I'm 18." And then in my brain I was like, "Oh, okay, green light." And then I asked for a number. I was like, "Dang, that was retarded." But you live and you learn. You make mistakes and then you overcome them. So from that experience, now I know I'm never gonna do that ever again. But you know what? It's tough nowadays because it's like I don't want to go up to a girl and be like, get the ball rolling, and then she says like, "Oh yeah, like I'm like 16." Like, ooh. Because like, what if we really hit it off? It's like, to be fair, like I hope I don't hit it off with a 16-year-old. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like you just got to make sure first. But then it's like, it's like that's not the first thing you want to say, but it's definitely not the last thing you want to say. You know what I'm saying? So it's a thing where I think now a little bit more small talk, and then ask for a name, and then ask for a number, and then maybe on text the first thing I ask, like, "How old are you?" You know, because it's just weird as hell. It's like guy going up to you and like, "How old are you?" Oof, not a good look. I don't know. That's something that people just gotta do more often though. It's hard though. Like you just get in stages where you have more confidence than other times, and then you're just like, "F it, we ball," and you just try and shoot your shot. But you get to points in your life where you're just like, sometimes you just gotta keep shooting shots. I watched this one video where this guy was like, "I practice every day," or it's like, how are you gonna bag a baddie when you don't even practice? That's like pulling a 3-pointer in an NBA game, and then it's like without practice. Practice makes perfect, but also perfect practice makes perfect. But you got to know what perfect is by learning what perfect is. You know what I'm saying, in the game. So you know, I just got to know the right things to say next time. It's tough, bro. It's tough. It's a tough world, but you know what the point is. It's like you can watch like a lot of Gerber Johnson, or you can just like get on Instagram Reels and get on the black pill side of things, and then you just think my life is cooked. You can just get to that point, no matter how attractive you are, no matter what you look like, or anything. Say you're a good-looking guy, right? If you're on black pill Instagram Reels every day, just because it like pops up in your feed once, and it's like the chart where it's like what, like 5% of like guys are like having sex with like 90% of the girls, and it's just like a small population of guys. I mean, that's just not true. That's just not true. Like, I just don't believe in that statistic. I feel like that statistic is just Instagram Reels. It's like propaganda being put into you, and it's like from China, so that we don't reproduce as much. I mean, aren't they having a population problem? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Um, Probably not anymore, because they got rid of the outlaw of like the one child per whatever thing, and then like they started aborting like a bunch of girls because no one wants to have a girl as a child. If you can only have one child, because then like I don't even know. I don't know. I guess like, yeah, your name won't be passed down or whatever, and that's chopped. That is chopped. I don't know. How are you gonna do that? How are you gonna do that? Aborting a child. Yeah, that's pretty evil. That's pretty evil. Um, Whatever though. People who abort children are aborting their children, but I'm gonna make sure not to abort my children. But who knows? Who knows? Never say never. That's probably the worst thing I could say after saying that. But unrelated to abortion, because I would never abort my children. But never say never, because I've done a lot of things that I thought that I would never do, and yeah. One day you're in college and high school and you're just thinking, oh, I got a good future ahead of me. Then the next day you're just like, damn, working a 40-hour job, it's the rest of my life. A friend told me that, and it's rough. It's rough out there. It's rough. But you just got to keep grinding. You just got to keep working at it. It's tough. You got to put yourself in good positions. And, you got to be like, it's not over till it's over. It's not over till it's over. Job's not finished. The job is never finished. You're going to work for a corporate company till you die. AI is going to become your manager. And that's in the story. I had a thought where maybe one day it's gonna get so chopped where instead of your last name being your parents' last name or whatever, where they're gonna start making test tube babies, and then your last name is going to be your company. So it's gonna be like, for example, like Alex Amazon, or Ferris Facebook. They're going to look back on this video and they're going to be like, damn, he was right. Damn, he was right. That's actually what I want to talk about. The worst people in the entire world who should die are the people who can't be wrong. I've noticed this in a friend who I've been hanging around recently, who is a chiller. Love the dude. But he's been hanging around one guy who is kind of corrupting him and influencing him in the worst way possible, where the guy who is hanging around is a little bit more feminine, a little bit more emotional than the average guy, and his worst trait is that he can't be wrong. I mean, like, you'll try to correct the guy, which, no one loves a guy who constantly corrects, but just like in simple things, like you'll just say your own opinion. He'll be like, oh, I don't think the Pope is actually Catholic. And then you'll be like, well, I wouldn't say that, because like the Pope is Catholic in this way and this way. And he's like, well, like like blah 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 blah, and like I knew that, and then like in this way, like this is how I'm right. Those are the absolute most annoying people to be around, and you should never ever do that. The healthiest friendships I have is people where I can just joke with back and forth, where being right, if you get a few of those, you get a few corrections where it's like, or you're having a conversation with someone, they're like, they like, you said something, and then like, blah, 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 and then like they say something again, and you're like, so I was right. You always have to be right. Most annoying people ever. It's honestly a sign of low testosterone. It really is. Because you know where the stereotype comes from? Oh, your wife is always right. Girls are always right. Which, that's a stereotype. That's not true. But it's a feminine quality. And a negative feminine quality. Where it's just like, it just shows no humility. And it's like not one of those ones where it's like, sometimes like when a guy has a lot of pride, like you could say, for example, like Kanye West, he has a lot of pride, but in a lot of ways, the pride makes his personality. That's not really a good thing, but sometimes a pride can be infectious. Right? But it's like, but then you look at like interviews or stuff like that, and then you see where he's just surrounded by people who only say yes to him. And then that's the worst thing that you can do. And then it's like, it just corrupts you. It just corrupts you, where it's like you've only been told that you're right and you're correct all your life. It corrupts you to the point where then you have no real friends, That's how I know a person doesn't have any close friends, or like good close friends. You can tell the people who actually have like friends that they love and would die for, and you can tell the people who have, a lot of acquaintances, And it's that one quality. It's by the quality of, does this person always have to be right? And I've met a couple people like that in my life. First year of college, I met a person who was like that, and I really liked him at first. But then, the more I got to know him, every conversation, he was always he one slip up, and even if he was wrong, and you'd be like, oh yeah, it's just like this, and he's like, well, no, like blah blah blah. It's like, so like in this way, like I'm right, like, well, so, or like, oh yeah, so I was right, and they're like, they're obsessed with being right, and I won't lie, it feels good to be right, and sometimes you just want to get your point across so bad, that you'll do anything for it just to be acknowledged that you are right, and that's just where pride comes from, and it's just like, it's bad, it is bad, and it's one of the things where, it's easy to do, but you just have to be so aware of it, you just have to be so aware of like, okay, I don't always have to be right, or when someone corrects you, you just have to just like learn to just like, yeah, you're right. And in some of the hardest times, which I've noticed, where it's like, sometimes it can be around the people you're most comfortable with, or like, say, family, for example. I remember this one time where like I was really struggling with it, where like my mom, every time my mom like corrected me or like said something, I was like, I always had to be right. I was like, oh my gosh, like, and then like one day it really got to me, and I was just like, I said something, and then she said something back, and I got angry. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just don't want to admit it, like blah blah blah. And it's just pride. But then like, I was just like, okay, like, sorry, you were right. And then people really take notice of that, and honestly, you get a lot more respect because of it. I mean, it's like, it's honestly one of the most respectful things that you can do. It's like, if I meet a person who admits that they were wrong, instead of like dodging the subject, proving that they were right in some weird way, or just like not letting a person just do their thing or whatever, I mean, that's a person where I'm like, that, like, you immediately notice that quality, because it's honestly so embedded into people, a pride where it's like I have to be right, or it just feels so good, it's like, it's not like, it doesn't feel good, but it's like almost like an obsession, and that like you don't even know is going on in the background of your brain, where it's like, you just can't be wrong, or it's like, and this is usually how it goes. It's like, this is the best example. Like, we go to a sandwich shop, right? And someone's like, oh, the meatball sub is the best sandwich here. And you're like, oh, that sandwich is good. But like, I think that the turkey sub is the best sandwich. And then they're like, yeah, but the meatball sub, has this going for it and blah, 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 blah. So it's like, yeah, and you're just like, yeah, I guess, bro. I guess. It's just like, it's just the most annoying thing ever. And all my good friendships, like, it's like you joke about the fact that you were wrong. Or it doesn't even get to that point, It doesn't even get to the point where it's just like, or you just start trolling with the other person, and that's chill, bro. But someone who can't take a joke, who always has to be right, I mean, those people are the most obnoxious people that I just can't stand to be around. And no one can. I think this is gonna be a short video, but like, yeah, that's really, I gotta go to bed soon. But that's really all I had to say. It's just like, my advice is just, never, voice your opinion, but you just have to be open to change, and you have to be open to being wrong, And honestly, admitting that you're wrong will take you so much further than trying to prove that you were right. It really will. I mean, and you kind of get into an area of glazing a bit, but like, say you have a person who is in a higher position than you or whatever, it's like, or you really want a connection. If you're just going back and forth with the guy, or just like having a simple conversation, and then you start acting like a little bit more humble around this guy, and like, you don't instead of gassing a person up, like putting them higher than you hear their opinions, and then, or like they try and do that to you, where it's like, oh, but this and this and this, and like, it's so, those people are the most easily manipulated people, because all you have to do to get them to like you is by saying, yeah, you're right, dude, yeah, you're right. It's like, no one's gonna do that to you if you're in a position lower than the person, or if like I'm in a higher position than this person, and then he says, yeah, well, but I'm right in this way, and you're just like, nah, like, you're weird, like, get out of my face. But if someone does that hard to me, so you just start glazing their ego, bro, and they're just like, oh, I like this person, he makes me feel good because he always tells me I'm right, you know. And if you have a high EQ/IQ, then you can really see the people who are real and who are not real. If you're, but like, no one who is smart, who is actually like intelligent, is even going to admit that they're like, that they have to be right. No one's gonna do that. The smartest people are gonna acknowledge when they're wrong. I mean, it's just simple as that. And so it's just like, you can take advantage of the people who always have to be right, and like, just like use them as a connection, and like, because that's their flaw. It's like, and like, you take advantage of the person, and then it's like, that's not on you, bro. You just took advantage of a situation, of a major flaw that this person has for your own benefit. And it's just like, if you cut them off in the future, then that's just life, bro. It's like, they got to figure that out on their own, on their own. And maybe that's another pride thing, where it's like, not only well, like, it's hand in hand. Someone always has to be right, and someone can never be wrong. It's like, those are the two. I mean, that's equivalent to the thing where it's like, people with low IQ can't give you a hypothetical. It's like, okay, let's say you had breakfast in the morning, but I did have breakfast. But those people obviously are low IQ. But it's the same thing for people who always have to be right, and always, or who can never be wrong. It's literally the equivalent. They can't be wrong. They always have to be right. They always have to, and they think that they're smart because they're proving in ways where like they have to tell you that they're smart, but they're not. They're just like, they're honestly dumb. They're just retarded, and it's just like a negative, low testosterone thing that you're doing by doing that. And that's why I'm right about that.